Hello, this is Kaiser Justice, and I'd like to formally welcome you all to Kaiser Devs Games. This is going to be my channel where I post all my game dev stuff going forward. Small projects, big projects, thoughts, whatever I have. There won't be a lot of posts as some other game dev channels, but I do want to try to create a diary of sorts of my journey. Speaking of which, this is going to be the dev diary, or first devlog, for Elunitetrix, the current game that I'm working on. Actually, let's check something. I need a new name. Please note that while I am no longer using Elunitetrix as my working title, unfortunately I've already recorded this audio and this video before I thought to check to see if Elunitetrix already existed. At this time, I am instead currently using a working title of Elunitetrix. This is a portmanteau of Element, Unite, and Tetris, though with an X at the end instead of an S, as I just think it sounds better. Nothing I pulled up at the time had this as its name, and I'm kind of just using a shorthand of Eltrix just going forward. So if you hear Eltrix or Elunitetrix, it's in reference to this game. Thank you so much for your understanding, and please enjoy the rest of the video. Now, I do have another channel that actually had my devlog for my previous game, Zoha, Zombies in the One-Hand Army. However, I will not be transferring over to this channel. But that project is also kind of done and dusted. Unless there's enough people out there who are very interested in me updating it, the game is basically feature complete for what I felt like putting into it. It is available on my itch.io, which will be linked below. Now, what is Elunitetrix? Elunitetrix spawned from a different game I was working on that I tentatively called From the Ground Up. And I'd like to go over that first. From the Ground Up actually started as a project where I was trying to emulate a fake game from an anime, one of my favorite anime of all time, and that game is here.
Firestarter. It's a handheld video game.
So as you can see, Fully Cooley had this game called Firestarter in its second episode, where you were basically trying to burn down the city of Innsville to appease the fire god Conti. I wanted to create a 3D modern take on this, essentially using it as kind of like this one brief episode as my entire design document. But as I was working on the 3D aspect of it, what I wanted to do is have the character throw Molotov cocktails. While I was working on getting the arc the way I wanted it, I had tested using blue spheres to contrast the gray background of Unity, and it turns out this looked a lot like water. And in my own boredom and curiosity, I decided what would happen if I increased the rate at which it did this, essentially doing like a burst projectile type thing. And it turns out it looks a lot like pouring water out of a watering can. From that point, my mindset went to what if I do the exact opposite? What if instead of trying to burn a city down to nature, you build nature up from nothing and possibly create a sprawling city? Essentially a city builder from the very minimum scratch. And that created From the Ground Up. Now, from the ground up, you start off with an island, you pour water onto the soil, and it sprouts a tree, and essentially it does have one little carryover, where you're lighting the tree on fire to cause it to burn down and spread ashes. Those ashes become new land, and you repeat this ad nauseum. Eventually you gain access to other powers of things that you can summon, and you would gradually grow from spreading trees and land to intentionally trying to block off areas to create waterways or spread rocks to create resources for people to come in to harvest. The problem is I got really, really bored with this idea. It just wasn't fun, even sped up. Now, I had ideas to introduce things like automation to the process and make it to where it's more like an automation, large-scale project over time, starting small and then growing exponentially. But I just could not see myself working on it. So from there, I was kind of distraught, and I had this workings of an idea, like, well, what if I just made like a simple puzzle game where you're just filling out a grid with Tetris blocks? And because I already had essentially these tiles for land created, I was like, well, what if I take some of these tiles, because, you know, there's going to be like a farm tile, a land tile, stone tile. What if I took elemental tiles and tried to work a puzzle game around that? So that's actually kind of where Elunitetrix came into fruition. It did help that I started playing Infinite Craft one day just to pass time while waiting for something to load. And Infinite Craft had this great merging system where things would just merge together. I forgot what I was trying to make. I think it was just Blue Eyes White Dragon. If you know how, please don't spoil how to get to it. I haven't even pulled Yu-Gi-Oh yet. But from there, I was like, okay, what if we take this puzzle game and make it to where you're dropping Tetris-shaped blocks onto a 5x5 grid with elements to create something similar to what the Ground Up was going to do, where you're creating an environment out of it. And that is my end goal for a story mode, if you will. I have the workings of a puzzle game story mode in my mind, and I'm working on writing it down into a design document for it. But the idea of turning Tetris with Infinite Craft into a 5x5 grid puzzle game is essentially where Elunitetrix came into play. Now, in this game, there are currently 2 modes. Right now, there is the basic mode where elements do not merge at all. There are only 4 elements that you play with. If you're familiar with Avatar: The Last Airbender, they're going to sound very familiar. Fire, earth, water, and wind. And as you place them, they will take up space on the grid. And the basics of the rules are you cannot place tiles partially on the grid, or you can't place the Tetronimo shapes partially on the grid, and you cannot overlap the same exact element. So if you already have a fire element down on a spot, you cannot place a Tetronimo that is composed of fire elements on that same spot. And that's really it. I have some plans to further increase ways of getting points, but for now the base game is actually functional for this mode. There's another mode that I have called Merge Mayhem. Now, before I show you the Merge Mayhem version of the game, I want to show you what's changed since this background footage was recorded. Now, if you watch the screen, just like that, this is the current start menu. As you can see, it looks a little bit better. There's a basic elements, Merge Mayhem, and tutorial. It shows a quick demo of just like what happens in the game, which I really love. I love when games do this instead of just showing, just a static image or animation. I love whenever they show an example of the gameplay. This took forever to figure out how to get it to work, or get it to work well. Especially because I wanted it to stagger the blocks dropping. The tutorial goes through all the basic systems as well for the game. It's very simple, bare bones, but it's there. Now, to show you Merge Mayhem, as you can see, there's a little score timer. Score's not there. They're still a little faint, but I want to make custom elemental icons for each element to have like in the background behind the image. But on the right side, you can still see the elements and what each of the tiles looks like. I plan on making not color-coded shapes, but changing the color of these to like just neutral colors, maybe gray or something. As you can see, if you look around, there is an environment that I've created very, very inspired by like the minimalistic nature of The Witness. And underneath, the void where all the blocks form into. This is still a work in progress portion, but even the cursor showing the current element, it used to be up here underneath score, and now it kind of just floats around the mouse. That honestly took more than a day to figure out, just due to trying to make sure that it rotated properly with the camera and everything. But to show a little bit of what the merge action looks like, place earth, timer starts counting down, place water, and boom, we get ice. There's a combo counter up here, and your score goes up. Boom, more ice, combo. If I continue to spam, the combo bonus meter will keep rising. But you gotta make sure that you don't try and place on the same blocks you put before. Another feature that has been added is, since that last video, is instead of defaulting to these shapes in general, it'll start on a random orientation. Still the same correct shape, but it's a random orientation. As you can see, we have a few blocks that are merged: ice, sand, stone. What's this one? This one is grass. There's a lot. Right now there's 4 different elements, but one of the things I plan on doing is possibly having it to where once you've the game over screen is still the same. But one of the things I plan to do is have it to where once you've merged a unique basic element, so ice as an example, it starts getting added to the rotation. It hasn't been made yet because I haven't come up with every single attribute that it would branch off into, which is something that is prohibitive of this. Because with the 4 elements, each of those can merge into the other 3, and I forget what it was. I think it was 10 different variations, maybe less, probably 6. I don't know. I don't feel like doing the math right now, but you would need to have an option for ice to merge with at least the 4 basics, but possibly all the other versions that come out afterwards. And then, for example, if you do earth and wind to make sand, and then you do wind on sand, what does that create? So there's a lot of expression that can be added later down the line. And that's just one of the things I plan on doing. It's going to take time, but at the very least, I wanted to get a minimum viable product for this game out. So that being said, I wanted to thank you so much for stopping by on this journey. Hope you look forward to seeing the future progress of this game. And if you are interested, please like, follow, subscribe, whatever you do for YouTube nowadays. I greatly appreciate it because that will help let me know what kind of content you want to see. If you have any elemental suggestions, please leave those in the comments below as well. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing y'all in the future.